Hi, and welcome to the first episode, the inaugural episode of the Coder Career Podcast. My name is Cameron Blackwood. If you aren't familiar already from YouTube, I'm an ex-technical recruiter who's now been a software engineer for the past 2 years. And this is where I interview people who have taken an interesting step into the world of tech. You find out what you can learn from them, their journey, things they do differently, etc. Today, I'm here with Nicolas, who I actually learned to code alongside. And we're going to discuss his journey into JavaScript, what he would do differently, and what he would advise people to do to get their first role in tech. So, why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit quickly, Nicolas?
Yeah, so it's good to be here, Cam. It's a pleasure to be here. So my name is Nicholas. Like you said, I'm a developer. I've been a developer for the past year and a bit. So I started doing front end development, but now I'm moving on to sort of back end development. I'm still sticking with JavaScript. So I've done React. I work with React on the front end, and now I'm doing Node on the back end as well. So yeah.
Cool, good stuff. So to get things started, why don't we just do a few quick fire questions? So first and foremost, what is your operating system of choice?
Windows.
Windows,
Yes.
controversial for programming. I'm more of a Mac man myself. How come Windows?
I don't know. I've always been a Windows guy. I feel like a Mac is a bit overpriced as well, so I'd rather stick with Windows.
Even with the new M1 chips, though, the Mac is pretty good. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
bit of a Bill Gates fan. Cool. And what about spaces or tabs? How do you format your code?
I'm currently using 4 tabs.
Yeah, I'm the same. It just looks neater. It just looks
Yeah, yeah.
neater. Like, people try and tell me spaces are more specific, but I just like to make things neater.
That's
And what
it.
about particularly with current times? Are you pro remote work or pro office work?
I feel like because it's my first job in the industry, and I've started the first job working remotely. I feel like I'm really eager to go to the office and sort of experience that office life. But I feel like after a few weeks, I'm gonna really miss going like working from home because I feel like it's very convenient. So I think I'll probably put myself in the middle. I would say I'm a bit of both. Maybe a couple days from the office, the rest of the days I'm working from home, or the other way around. I think that would be the perfect thing for me.
But when you got 15 years experience, won't be tempted to put the feet up by the pool, have some cocktails
Yeah,
somewhere
no,
in the
no. After a
Mediterranean?
few years, I'll
Yeah.
probably take remote all day, every day.
Yeah, bang out some JavaScript while having a
That's
Peroni
it.
or something. That would
Yep.
be ideal. Or TypeScript these days. Both of
Yeah,
us
yeah.
working with that now. And that actually leads me on to my next question. What is your favorite programming language and why?
I would say JavaScript. JavaScript is a programming language you can use front end, back end with Node, TypeScript. So I would say 100% JavaScript for me.
It's so versatile. If anyone comes up to me and says, Cam, I want to learn how to code, even if they know nothing about the industry, nothing about programming at all, say, just learn JavaScript.
JavaScript, that's
It's
it.
not the same as Java. It's JavaScript.
That's the point.
People like to name things to confuse people, but with JavaScript and Python, you can get anywhere, but particularly JavaScript in the current employment market, I totally agree. So that's kind of the quick fire questions out of the way there. So just to do you want to just give me a bit of background on yourself? Like, what made you decide to go into the tech industry? Like from all the way through, like what was your first exposure to it? Why did you fall in love with this industry?
Yep. Sure. So I studied computer game development at university. It's something I did for the 3 years I was there. But I realized when I finished, I realized it was a bit. I guess everything's difficult, but I feel like getting into the gaming industry is a bit more difficult than the other industries. So I started sort of looking at other ways because it took me and I was looking for a job, but then I wasn't getting any luck. So I started looking for other ways I could put my programming skills into work. So obviously I started looking at web development. Is something I started doing. We did the course together actually, where I was able to learn React, and that's what sort of kickstart my career. I was able to finally secure a job in as a React developer. I moved on to the back end side of the web development. So yeah, so sort of quick review of how I've got to where I am.
Nice. And how do you find a difference between coding for computer games and was that using stuff like Unity and C Sharp? How's that different in your experience to learning web stuff, because a lot of people, and I'm not to put words in my mouth, but it sounds similar to your story. They get inspired to learn to code via playing great computer games.
Yeah, so I've always been interested in computer games. It's something I've always liked, playing PlayStation, computer games, and everything. So I feel like when I went from developing video games to web development, it was a bit different because when I was making games, we never used a database for anything. So it was storing all the images and everything inside the actual project. It was nothing to do with there was no backend in there. It was just one sort of thing, and we never used. So when I went to actually using databases, it was a bit confusing because I didn't quite understand what I was doing. So I guess it's sort of different in that way. But when it comes to the programming, I feel like it's very similar.
Yeah, it sounds very similar. I mean, I've never done any gaming stuff myself, but that sounds very interesting, and it's interesting you say that about the lack of database, and because I suppose really, unless it's an online game, like it's just an executable file on your computer or your console of choice. So obviously that's changing a little bit with stuff like Fortnite now, the kind of always on games.
Yeah,
I'm getting a little bit old for that stuff at 26. I'm not quite down with the kids anymore. But yeah, that's really interesting, and I can see why that will present different challenges. And obviously, they're kind of it's a good gateway into getting into this. And I've seen a lot of I've heard about a lot of kids that are getting into like modding Minecraft and Roblox
yeah,
and that sort of thing, and that's how they get inspired. So if games are there to introduce young people into this industry, that's definitely a great thing. And what inspired you? What inspired you originally to do the computer games programming? What was that literally from playing games, or was it like
yeah. So
did you
I've
do a lot of
always
maths in school and that?
I've always wanted to, before you go into university playing video games, I've always thought, like, I
Mm.
looked at games and thought, okay, we could do this that way, we could do this way, maybe improve the game. So I've always dreamt of sort of making that game that everyone's going to play. So it's something even though I'm doing something different now, it's something I'm still doing. I'm still going to be doing during my free time. It's not easy because when you work programming all day, for you to actually go and carry on programming even after the 9 to 5 sort of day, it's not easy because it gets a bit tiring. So it's something I try to do a lot. So just take some free time to actually sort of into my own sort of projects.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I'm absolutely making no claim to knowing what running a marathon is like, but mentally staring at a terminal for 12 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's kind of the one foot in front of the other. It's one command in front of the other, one
yeah.
line of JavaScript in front of the other. So that's interesting. Is there any game that was like the one that really inspired you, like favorite game of all time that you thought would be great
Yeah,
to program yourself?
I always looked at GTA actually. GTA is very free. You can do a lot of things, but there's also a lot of things you wish you could do, but you can't do. So I've always thought about, I want to make a game like this one, but allow the user to do everything that you can think of. Obviously, it's something really difficult to do because there's so much work put into it. But yeah, I've always looked at GTA and I thought, there's a lot of things that could be done with that.
Yeah, I think it's a massive project. Those
Yeah,
sandbox stuff, especially the newer titles. I remember playing Vice City when I was
yeah,
6 with my friend on his old brother's PS2, and I remember both our mums finding out, and well, we were in trouble. Like
yeah. It's just
playing
stuff that
sort of
can be done
certificate
there.
18 when you're in year two, it doesn't go down too well. Yeah, that's cool, and I can imagine the amount of hours and the size of the team. I
Yeah,
mean,
no,
I heard that GTA 5 had a budget of 300 million or something crazy, and yeah, it's interesting up here in Scotland, which is where I'm based. For people that aren't aware, we do have a very big computer gaming industry in Edinburgh and Dundee, and it's something that's really been an uptick, particularly in Dundee, that's provided a lot of jobs. So
yeah.
it's very very cool sector that I'll be interested in finding out more about. So I guess in your career as well at the moment, from both the computer and the gaming and the website, what's been your biggest challenge so far? Would you say?
I think my biggest challenge was actually sort of getting into the industry. I feel like that was the biggest challenge. There's a lot of factors that take into consideration finding your first job. It's not just your skills and what you can do. There's a lot of things that sort of take you away from getting the job that you want. So I feel for me the hardest bit of everything was actually getting my foot through the door. I feel like that was the biggest challenge.
Yeah, there's a lot of misconception with progress and that kind of thing about it being linear, and really, it's the step zero to step one is the
Yeah,
hardest part by far. Like, if you asked me the same question, I'd 100% say the same thing. And I was already lucky enough to already be working in the industry, albeit in a non-technical capacity. So it's very tough to get the first job, and that's a lot of the reason, the motivation I have behind setting this podcast up is to help people
yeah,
sort of get some advice from people that have been there and done it, because the first step is the hardest. But what I do love about this industry, and we were talking about it just before we came on, is the fact that we've been able to help our friends that we're on sort of the course with get their first jobs. And it's really an industry where people get an arm up from each other. And having
yeah,
worked in
yeah,
sort of sales kind of environments before, it can be very different. So it's great. I mean, unless you poorly word a question on Stack Overflow, everyone is always very nice to each other.
yeah, yeah,
Cool. And I mean, kind of related to that is, if you think back to the start of your journey, being that when you left school and went to uni
yeah.
to study, or when you started looking for the web development jobs, what advice would you give yourself if you could go back in time and speak to yourself?
I think the one advice I would give myself, which is I feel like a lot of people make this mistake, is I would tell myself to stop looking at so many tutorials, stop following so many tutorials, and actually get hands on. Because when you look at so many tutorials, you get things done, you get things working, but when you come to do it yourself, you can't do it because you've been following someone else's work. And I feel like tutorials are very. I feel that like they're there to help you with small things, not getting everything, because you know most of them don't really explain what they do very well. So you get things working, but you don't actually know how they work. And I feel like that kind of that if you just keep following tutorials, that's gonna bring you down by a lot. If you don't get hands on with the code, you're never gonna learn. So I would say to myself, stop looking at so many tutorials and start actually working, because the moment you start coding and you start coming through, you start getting the problems that you actually need to solve. That's how you learn. When you start going on Stack Overflow, how do you do this? How do you do that? And then getting it to work. That's how you learn. Not following someone else's code and following a video and stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because this is something I bang on about to everyone. It's a hamster wheel.
Yeah.
You're pushing and pushing and pushing, and you feel like you're working because you're basically typing along
Mm.
with someone. It's like I can't think of a good example, but it's like trying to learn a foreign language by just writing stuff out on a piece of paper that you see on a wall. It's like going to if I went to a restaurant in Paris, I don't speak a lick of French, and I wrote out the menu in French, and I would expect to learn from it. It's like
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
understand what's going on behind the scenes. That's not the best analogy, but that's the best I could think of in the moment. So yeah, I definitely agree with you. And the solution I find is tutorials are of course great and really helpful, and you can learn a lot from them. But what the best thing to do is to test what you've
Yeah.
learned. Say you've just learned a new framework in JavaScript, just go and build something small in it. So just go and build like something silly like a calculate your age in dog years was
Yeah.
something I built when I first learned React. Like, it doesn't have to be something overly complicated, but as long as you can prove the concept that you've learned, it's that's the best way of doing it, I think. So yeah, I totally agree with you, and it's a huge thing when people just get stuck doing tutorial after tutorial.
Yeah.
I've seen people do it for years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially those 3 to 4 hour tutorials that you find on YouTube. At the end of the tutorial, it gets you a good project, but you don't know how it works. And then most of the times, the video might be outdated. So when you come to actually maybe you're using Node, a older version of Node, you're using a new one. When you come to build, whatever, it's not gonna run, and then you don't know what you're doing. So you spend basically you gone halfway through the video, 2 hours into the video in this 4 hour video, and then you realize that it just doesn't work, and you don't know why it doesn't work. And it's happened to, I'm saying it because it's happened to me. So I've been 2 hours into the video and it just stopped working, and then I don't know what to do because I've no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's so hard because it's funny you say that, 'cause that literally happened to me last Friday. At
Okay.
my current job, I'm lucky enough that we get every other Friday to spend the day learning, and it's
Yeah.
great if you use it wisely. Which in this case, I intended to use it wisely. I did a GraphQL course. didn't realize the 4 hour video was from 2017, and 4 years in software engineering and web development, especially time,
A
that
lot
may
of
as well be the medieval times. It was ridiculous because the annoying thing is I got about 60% in, and then I realized, oh, none of this like works this way anymore at all. So what I mean, I'm lucky enough that I'm experienced enough to realize what was going on and then go to docs and kind of build my own thing. But I wouldn't have been able to do that, especially if I'd been just typing along. What I'd done was I looked at the tutorial leader and saw what he was doing, and I built
yeah,
a similar but not the same project simultaneously, and that's the best way to deal with it. But yeah, you can really get bogged down, and if you're stuck doing something that's outdated, then or even just wrong, because
yeah,
there are resources out there that are wrong, it's a very difficult thing to get stuck on. Like stuff like Free Code Camp was always updated, and that's what I recommend. And a big tip as well is you can filter YouTube videos from ones that have uploaded in the past year.
yeah.
Is definitely a good way to go. The other one as well is where you're it's in a language you don't understand because it's the only video you can find. Like I've had to try and follow alongs to ones in Hindi before and stuff, and it's really hard.
Yeah, you always get. Luckily for me, I speak English and Spanish, so I've got a sort of backup just in
Oh, that's
case.
good. Yeah, you've got like the second. Spanish must be. I think it's the second most popular language in
Yeah,
the world after
something like that.
Chinese,
Yeah,
right? So you've got a lot of potential videos out there.
yeah, yeah.
So
Sometimes
that
when I can't find it, something in English, I'll just type it in Spanish and just wish for the best.
I speak like a smattering of German, but all the German content creators just do it in English anyway, so
Yeah,
not even useful at all in that context. Yeah. It's tough. Learning how to learn is a skill in itself, and
yeah,
it is tricky. I got stuck on a tutorial hamster wheel. 100%. Like I definitely didn't. I definitely spent 6 months too long doing stuff, and it was when I
yeah.
was still a recruiter and just spending an hour a day just solving like little problems on Free Code Camp. And actually, I didn't know how to. I didn't even have VS Code downloaded. I didn't know how Git worked. I was copy and pasting my code and putting it onto GitHub. Like I was just inventing the most complicated way to do source control. Which, if you're not familiar, if you're listening to this because you want to get into code, that's like me writing down my Word document instead of hitting save. Like it was very dumb. So you can look back on these things and laugh, and then hopefully just if one person listens to this and now uses source control properly, then my struggle is worth it for sure. But yeah, so I mean, I guess on to the present day because we haven't really talked about it. The present day for you at the moment, what stuff are you working on? What area of the industry are you in? What are you doing day to day?
So at the moment, like I mentioned before, I'm doing backend stuff. So looking at APIs, building services, basically crude. So create, update, delete. So that's what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis at the moment. We basically have our platform. We're updating the platform. So recently we got a couple interns to help with the front end because front end takes a lot of work, especially the CSS. And I feel like we just had too much work with in our hands to do. So we needed some help. So we hired a couple interns, and now we can focus on some of the backend stuff, which we had a lot of stuff we had to do a lot of optimizing and stuff. So yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Okay, cool. And the company you work for, what's the product you're working on? Are you allowed to reveal much, or is it classified?
No, I can say it's so basically we sell a sort of we've got two products. So one of them is to create virtual tours, 360 tours. It's like how you view if everyone's been to Google Street View. So it's sort of like Google Street View inside a house.
Hmm.
So we sort of offer the platform where you can build tours. You can take the panorama pictures, 360 pictures, link them together, and then you can make a house, and that's how you show your properties. And then we also have the second product, which is how estate agents show their properties viewings to other people. So we can show the house while you're speaking in the camera or just chatting as well, chatting on the with text message, not text messages, just like a chat on
Okay,
the
just
web.
like a live,
Yeah, yeah,
like a
like
Twitch
live chat.
chat style
That's
thing.
the
Yeah.
word I was looking for. And then yeah, that's what pretty much what we do.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean that's a really good product, particularly in COVID-19 era
Exactly.
where people are less keen on doing these things in person. And as someone that has just moved 450 miles north
Yeah,
in my personal life, that sort of thing would have been really useful if some of the Edinburgh estate agents had bought in. So that's a lead for your sales team.
yeah, and it saves a lot of time as well because there's you can when you're looking for a house, you can see a house, you see pictures of a house that you think it's nice, but then when you actually see the house in real life, you realize it's actually quite disgusting. So it kind of saves a lot of time for the user, and as well for the agent. A lot of petrol having to get to the properties and stuff. So it's quite good for the environment as well.
Okay, cool. And you mentioned the front end challenges. Is that the biggest kind of challenge that's facing you guys at the moment?
Not personally. I feel like I've been working front end for about a year, so I feel a bit comfortable. In terms of challenges on the front end, I would say the hardest thing for me would be when you have to make the website responsive, because there's hundreds of screen sizes, and to get all of them to work is really difficult. So when you have the laptops, the Retina displays, the Macs, the iPads, the iPhones, Samsungs, all of that, it becomes
Someone's Gucci smart fridge and that kind of thing. That's
it
like,
becomes a pain, a real big pain. And because the when you try to emulate the any device on Google, it's not quite the same. So sometimes you feel like something looks good, but when you test it on the actual device, it looks completely messed up. So
that's a
yeah,
huge tip for anyone wants to learn responsive design. Don't trust dev tools. It's
yeah.
great,
There's a
but
there's a there's a program
yeah,
called Browser Stack, which is
browser stack.
I don't
Okay,
know if you've heard about it. It emulates. I think it's they've got devices somewhere, and you literally they've got a free trial, so you can use it for 1 minute. I feel like they've got devices somewhere in their company or whatever, and you can browse through the website using their devices, and you can use the dev tools as well. So that would be an easy, the best way to do, because that's how you can emulate devices properly. But then
that's
obviously that's a bit
really cool.
expensive. It's a bit expensive. If you can do it in 1 minute, then
Yeah,
use a free trial, and you get a lot of devices. You can choose the Apple devices, and you get literally all of them. So you basically got a minute per device. So you've got iPhone 11, iPhone 12, 12C, whatever, I don't know, 7, iPhone 8, iPhone 10. So there's a lot of devices, but bear in mind you've only got 1 minute, so you need to do it quite fast.
I suppose it tests your. It's a test for UX designers, there, isn't it? Like, can
Yeah.
you get through all the user flows within the minute? That's really cool because I'm working on a couple of React Native projects at the moment because I wanted
Okay.
to give that a try, and I don't own an iPhone, so
Mm.
it's going to be hard for me to test the different iPhone
Yeah.
sizes. Because I've only got an Android, I've got a Google Pixel, and it's only one screen size. So
Mm.
that's really useful and that's really good to know. So I'll definitely be trying it out. That'll help me out quite a lot. So cheers for the tip there.
No worries.
Cool. And there's been a lot of talk over the past few years because of the nature of our industry of the gap between the amount of jobs available, but the amount of people who are skilled enough to fill those jobs. And we're people that both kind of retrained into doing web development. Whilst
Mm.
you came from a more technical background, 'cause you'd already done the degree. For me, I stepped in from a non-technical side of things. And what do you think it should be done and can be done to encourage more young people to go down the path we have? Because I really enjoy my job, as far as I'm aware, you do as well.
Yeah, yeah.
It's how can we encourage more young people to take this path and find that take these jobs that are available for them?
Yeah, I would say when you start programming, this it's not just one path you can take. It's not like you can learn, I don't know, front end development, and then you have to stick with front end development. It's something you can learn one language, and then from that you can literally do so many things. You can do back end development, you can work with databases eventually, you can DevOps, security. There's plenty of things you can do. So even if you think like, "Oh, I'm only doing front end right now," you could be doing front end right now, but that could lead on to more better things. If I don't know, if you're looking for something different, you can also make a good living out of front end development. There's a lot of things into it, but from there, literally, you can do anything you want. You can be CTO. You can. There's literally endless paths when you get into the industry, and I feel like there's a lot of people that feel like they might think they're not smart enough to do something like this, but it's not really. That's not really a thing. It's not like because people do, I don't know, web development or programming, it doesn't mean they're geniuses. So I feel like that's a sort of stereotype that people need to get over.
Yeah, I agree. And whilst it's nice to have that reputation, I know for a fact that I'm not a genius because I
Yeah.
walk into a room and forget why I'm there 10 times a day. I'm not a genius. I just know a bit of JavaScript, and it's movies and that kind of thing that have portrayed
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
IT
Yeah.
geek, and it can seem intimidating. And I was a bit worried about it big time. Like I was terrified of using the terminal. And we need to make it less intimidating, and
Yeah.
you can learn to code a little bit, and if you decide it's not for you, it's such a
Yeah.
good springboard into, like, we know people that learned to code with us and then ended up doing stuff like product management,
Mm.
which is still in the industry, still an awesome, rewarding career, and you can get a lot done. And it's product management as a particular job is a great path to being a tech CEO because you touch everything. So it's such a good position to be in, and I really hope. I believe there are some movements towards this, but if we can encourage more programming languages to be taught in school and that kind of
Mm.
thing, just to
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
people in early on and make sure the UK both stays as a good tech hub but continues to grow as well, it's a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah, I would say something else is that people think that when you start learning how to program, there's a lot of things you feel like you need to learn. You don't technically need to learn all of that. There's a lot of things where you don't know how to do. You literally, I think I would say the way you learn is that you sort of come up with a problem and you try to solve it. And
Mm.
in the process of solving that problem, that's how you learn. I don't know. For example, in JavaScript, there's many functions you can use. Like there's mapping, there's filtering, there's find. There's a lot of things which you don't really need to know off by heart. Even someone who's been working in the industry for a year or 2 years, it doesn't mean they know everything off by heart. It's not something we use every day. So it's not. You don't need to feel like you need to learn everything off by heart in like to get a job. You just need to know the
Exactly, yeah.
basics. You need to know how to sort of solve problems, and then you'll be fine.
And you need to learn how to Google as well
Yeah,
because
that's the. I
you
think
know
that's the most important thing. I think that's
just
the most
no one
important.
can be expected to remember all the syntax.
Yeah,
And you're right, most of our job is array manipulation, and it's hard to remember. Like I remember having to Google the arrow syntax like in a function, and I have to
yeah,
Google it every single time because Ricardo, who taught us how to code, was more
yeah,
of a fan of the arrow function because it was more concise, and I could never get my head around it. And one day it just clicks, and you can just write it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's when you realize it's less scary than it actually is, because all you're really doing is you're just manipulating some data structures.
Mm.
All we essentially are digital plumbers, except if we break something, then we just break a website and the house doesn't get flooded with raw sewage. So actually, we're under less pressure.
Yeah, that's it.
Not sure about the sewage analogy, but yeah, I think
Analogy.
it's good, and I think hopefully we can encourage more young people to,
Yeah,
to get into tech because the opportunities are there for them, and particularly as things are going remote as well. It's not like you have to be based in London anymore. You can be based somewhere where you don't really have as many traditional employment opportunities. As long as you have access to the internet, that's what becomes the great equalizer in today's economy.
yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so I guess to wrap up, what would you say the biggest thing you've learned from getting into your career in tech would be, and what would you say to someone who came up to you right now and said, "I want to learn to code"? What would you say to them?
So the biggest thing I've learned in terms of skills, or in terms of what way?
I would say the biggest thing, I guess, technical skills, but also you've almost kind of learned about yourself and learned about how you work and how you can learn.
So I feel like the biggest thing I've learned is not to give up. I would say there's a lot of when you're programming. There's a lot of days that you can spend all day trying to sort something out, trying to solve something that you've been working on for the whole day. You can, and it could drive you crazy. So it's not, and then the day after, because it's happened to me on a Friday, for example, I've been working on something the whole day and it's been stressing me out. Finish the day, come back on a Monday after I spend the whole Friday doing one thing. Come back on a Monday, I'll solve the problem in like 10-20 minutes. And it's because you feel like you spend too much time on one thing. So you need to sort of, I think patience is the key as well. And it's something I wasn't really that good at. I wasn't really patient, but I feel like it's taught me how to be patient and how to not give up. So I feel like, I feel like that's one thing I would say I've been able to learn. And if someone came, what's the second question again? Sorry.
I would say, like, if someone came up to you and said they wanted, like, if you had, I don't know, like your cousin, your teenage cousin came up to you and said, "I want to learn to code," what would you say to them?
I would say to them, first thing you need to know is, I would say, first thing you should do is what sort of things you want to learn. So I think focus on maybe one language, one sort of goal that you need to have. Because if you try to learn, if you feel like learning programming is learning Python, learning C sharp, learning C++, it's going to drive you crazy. So you need to sort of choose. Maybe speak to someone that you know. Maybe I can, if they're asking me, I can sort of tell them. Probably tell them go through the JavaScript path. So focus on one thing, and I feel like after that one thing, you become really good at it. From there, it's gonna kick off. It could take you towards Python. It can take you towards C sharp. You can probably stay with what you learn. So yeah,
Yeah, it really snowballs, doesn't it? And you touched on a great point about I like how basically the first thing you said was, well, you already know me, so let me help you out. It's building
yeah,
your network is and there's networking in terms of how computers work, but then also as well there's your personal network, and that's one of the best ways to build your career, because you can meet people you can learn from, get employed from, get mentored by.
yeah,
It's such a great way forward, and it's really good. Just get yourself out there, get to meetups and that sort of thing, and it's really good. And coding teaches you perseverance, and it's humbling, but it's so rewarding at the same time. And as you say, you can spend all day doing something and then realizing
yeah,
that you can solve it. And I find generally the best debugging method for that is going for a walk around the
yeah,
block, or
yeah, yeah,
if you're
exactly.
feeling more lazy, is making a cup of coffee, so or a Monster Energy drink, depending on what kind of day it is. Uh, yeah. I mean, it's been awesome chatting with you, and I think the amount of insight that people can get from this. From your experience is really good, and I really appreciate your time, and thanks so much again. And is there anything you wanted to say before the end of the pod?
No, I would just say just one more final sort of tip I would say is that when you're looking for your first job, it's not all about skills, technical skills. Soft skills is plays a big part in it. You can have someone who knows a lot, but then it can be someone who's really difficult to work with. And there's someone who might not know a lot, might just know the basics, but it just makes it so much, peaceful working with them. Someone who doesn't know a lot but wants to learn and shows that that person's eager to learn probably is worth more than someone who's, I don't know, maybe a bit cocky and thinking that they know everything.
Mhm.
So I would say, if someone who's looking for a job, it's not all about the thing. Okay, technical skills plays a big part. You need to know what you're doing, but also bear in mind that soft skills can get you very far.
Yeah, Ricardo taught us, the guy who taught us how to
Yep.
code, was that it's 60% soft skills, 40% technical skills. And what a segue this is, because I can plug my YouTube channel. If you want to learn the soft skills, there's plenty of technical tutorials out there. I don't do those because I'm not a senior engineer yet. But if you want to learn the soft skills, I give plenty of tips on interview prep, like what to work on, how to stand out from the crowd as a junior developer. So thank you. I'm sure that was entirely your intention to set me up
Of
there.
course.
But yeah, no, it was great to catch up, mate, and really appreciate you taking the time. And thanks again. And if anyone has any questions, please reach out, and we can answer. But yeah, thanks again. This has been Cam Blackwood with the Coder Career Podcast. Thanks very much.